Well, my story begins in high school. I grew up in a good home. My family was really supportive of everything I wanted to do. I grew up, my family was really, they were always there for me. I thought I had a great family compared to a lot of my friends that grew up. Parents were getting divorced. My parents always stayed together, didn't really fight too much. I just thought I had a really great upbringing. In high school, I started getting into sports really heavy. I played basketball pretty much my whole life, baseball for about 8 years, and football for about 5. I devoted my whole life, everything I did, to sports, hoping that one day I would be playing for a living, specifically in basketball or football. I went to high school, played on the varsity team for about 2.5 years. Made it to, not states, but sectionals my final year as I was a senior. And we ended up not doing so hot. It was our first year of being in sectionals for quite a while in the school's history. So we were in that, we didn't do too well. Ended up losing our game, and I just remember walking back to the locker room, just thinking in my head it was over. Everything I'd worked my life for, everything I was building up everything to do, to go to college to play basketball, just hoping that I could just continue my life in athletics. And I remember looking in the mirror in the locker room, just kind of flashed back my life to when I was about 8 years old, when I first can remember picking up a basketball and just wondering where all the time went and what I did with all that time. And I just felt useless as a person. I felt like I just took up 10 years of my life doing nothing. And it was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. I just remember sitting just crying in the locker room with a towel over my head, just not knowing what I was going to do next. I was just scared for my future. I didn't think I had anything. I hadn't decided on a major that I wanted to go to college for. I actually didn't even decide what college I was going to until about a week before it started. So I guess you could say I was really lost coming out of high school. But I ended up graduating. Was kind of confident that I was just going to do the whole party thing like everyone else was. I ended up getting a house with 3 other guys. Got into drugs, alcohol, pretty much anything you can imagine. We used the house just to party all the time, had parties almost every day. Got an idea to start growing marijuana in our house, which was a stupid idea now looking at it, but we thought that it would fulfill a lot of our desires in having money and just having purpose and just finding something else to dedicate my life to. It was going well until one day 2 of my roommates were home and a few guys came in the house for a drug deal. They put guns to my roommates' heads, telling them they were going to kill them, put them in the basement, took everything we had in the house, all the drugs we had, and left. And by God's grace, they're alive today. But just going to them and talking to them about what happened, I couldn't even understand. I got into the mode where all these people around me when I was in high school were dying, but I never really thought it could ever happen to me. Like a lot of people, it'll never happen to me. It's just someone else screwed up and they paid for it. And so just understanding that 2 of my best friends that I've ever had were about this close to dying, it was just the scariest thing to understand or to fathom. I couldn't even think of what it felt like for them to have guns to the side of their head in the basement, just thinking this is it. There's nothing left after this. And at the time, I believed in God. I believed in His existence. But it wasn't like I knew heaven, knew anything about heaven. I just knew a few stories and that was it. And so by then, my 2 roommates that got held up, they tried to find a meaning for life. They went around trying to find churches. We got intrigued by the story of Revelation of how the world's going to end, and they came across a church, the Chapel Cross Point, and when they were there, they changed when they came home. I wouldn't start going just because I was content where I was at with my religion. It never worked for me. I never felt a change by going to church on Sunday. I would usually grow up going every day. Never felt anything, but I ended up going with the guys one day and just walking through the doors of the church, there's something about it that just gave me a peace of being where I was, made me comfortable of the place I was at. And it was an awesome feeling. I felt at home when I walked in this place, and I ended up going to the college ministry vintage they have on Tuesday nights. And I liked the music. I'm a big music guy, so I liked when the band played. I really didn't care too much about the message. I was kind of into just going because the girls were there. A lot of girls were there, so I had on my mind that I was going to be there for a while, I guess. So I ended up going back the next week, and the pastor at the time showed a video of Louis Giglio called Indescribable, about space and how big the space and universe are, but how small we are as individuals. And I hated it. He showed it in 2 segments, and the first time I just hated it. I just never wanted to come back. I really didn't care about anything. I didn't care about the music or girls at that time. I was just thinking I was wasting my life with something else. And I told myself I wasn't going to come back, but I ended up coming back. And the next week they showed a video of all these galaxies and how far people have been in with like space and the telescopes. And there was one galaxy called the Whirlpool Galaxy. I have absolutely no clue where it is. I just know it's in space somewhere. But the furthest that they've gone into the space with telescopes at that time, there was just a picture of a huge cross just in the dead center of the galaxy. And they would say there was an X just turned to its side, but there was something that just overwhelmed my body when I saw that. And I had no clue what it was, never felt anything like that before. And I just knew at that time that I needed to surrender to something bigger than me. And I finally understood that there was a relationship that I could get involved in and get connected with God and actually have a relationship with God. And so the pastor gave a testimony or a salvation message, and I raised my hand. And I remember a few days later driving home from school with one of my roommates, and I just looked to him and said, man, I feel so different. My body feels like it's never been before. I don't feel like me. And at that time, I just looked back, and that's the time where God really just enveloped my life and just took over. And that's when I became born again. So ever since then, I've been just kind of like opening my Bible and learning things about God that I never understood. Like having a relationship with God has been the most amazing thing. I dedicated my life to sports, drugs, different things like that, and everything came to an end one day. But little did I know when I walked into church that one day that I would be getting myself involved with something that would never end. And that was just the coolest thing, that knowing that there would never be a closed book on my life, knowing that when I died I knew where I was going, I knew what was going to happen, and that religion one day just would disappear from my life, that I would just carry on to eternity with God. And just having a relationship with Jesus Christ was just the most amazing thing that I got involved in and that I'm doing right now. So one big thing that I guess I learned through this whole thing was that I can trust someone forever, and that's Jesus Christ. That no matter what I'm going through, no matter what struggles I have, that I've always been able to turn to Jesus and be comforted and be at peace with whatever the situation or circumstance is, because of what He's taught me and what I know will happen one day when I die and where I'm going to be with Him. If you want to know more about this God I'm talking about, check this out.